there's no way out. If there's no water, there is no way out of Gaza. What should we do? Like drown? Like commit mass suicide? Is this what Israel wants? Even if that is the last thing that I would be able to do. And this is the feeling of everybody. We are helpless. We have nothing to lose.
Anti-Semitism, as we know, is hatred and prejudice and racism towards Jewish people and their faith and their ethnicity. Anti-Zionism is a movement fighting against the occupation. This is a settler colonial fascist regime that we're seeing attempting to wipe out an entire indigenous civilian population.
In your perspective, what is Zionism?
75 years of brutal occupation, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and colonization of the Palestinian people.
Hello, I'm CraftyAndy, and these are my thoughts. Just trying to keep things lighthearted here before I start getting into more serious topics. So let's talk about Israel and Gaza and the little conflict going on there. In case you're living in a relatively privileged, willfully ignorant life, or you're so impoverished there is little reason to care about anything beyond getting your next meal, Israel is an apartheid state who was recently attacked by a terrorist group known as Hamas. They murdered some men, women, and children, kidnapped a whole bunch as well, and in response, the Israeli government has declared all Gazans as combatants, cutting off water, fuel, food, and electricity in the area, which is considered a war crime.
The strikes are part of Israel's retaliation against Hamas for the weekend's bloody terror strikes. Today, the Israel Defense Forces released video of warplanes striking Gaza's Islamic University. It says Hamas used it for training and producing weapons. And Israel is striking critical infrastructure, including Gaza's port. The entire Gaza Strip is under a total blockade, with more than 250,000 people displaced. Israel has cut off all supplies of food, water, and fuel. To survive, residents help each other however they can.
I send water to those who've had their houses demolished. All those who have been displaced don't have anything. All they have is suffering, fear, and horror.
And now, Gaza will soon sink into darkness. Its last operational power plant today stopped working after it ran out of fuel.
With the United States' blessing, they are indiscriminately bombing neighborhoods, murdering men, women, and children, with a bunch of automatons repeating the phrase, "Israel has a right to defend itself," and some calling for the entire area to be turned into a parking lot, among other wonderful language I'm sure will not inspire potential violent conflicts in the future, there or other places.
Fuck Palestine! Palestine to my dick!
What do you think the response should be from Netanyahu and the military to Gaza?
Kill all Palestinians! And Israel need to do like this. You see? Now Gaza. Like this. Gaza need to do like this. Or like this, but all this Jewish. Two options.
What do you think the response should be to Gaza?
We gotta wipe them off the fucking map. I'm talking about every fucking flatten them like a parking lot.
Yeah,
flatten them out once and
there's
for all.
nothing else you can do. They proved to us that there's nothing else you can do. We tried, and
we tried everything. It doesn't work. We have to wipe them flat off the fucking map, like a fucking parking lot.
There is little to no pushback on this from leaders simply because of political and money interests. Just like when a terror attack happened on the United States in 2001, instead of reflecting on what the real driving factor was behind the action, a bunch of citizens were emotionally compromised and money interests in the form of fossil fuel companies, not letting a good catastrophe go to waste, used that sentiment to justify invading Iraq, starting the farce on terror conflict.
You know, for years and generations, wars have been fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water.
The current Prime Minister of Israel, who remains in charge, despite Israelis calling for his resignation, believes in a religious justification of expanding Israel's territory and sees Palestinians as less than human. To keep it short.
And demonization and dehumanization of the Palestinian people has been the go-to method of the Likud party and Benjamin Netanyahu, and unfortunately, that strategy has been working. He even went so far as to ahistorically claim that Hitler didn't want to exterminate the Jews because the Muslim Grand Mufti of Jerusalem did. He convinced Hitler to do that. Because remember, Muslims are always the bad guys, and he will go to any length to make them look bad, including even defending Hitler. And
just in September, there were talks of how the ongoing expansion of Israeli settlements and daily violent encounters during the process are a violation of international law. 68 Palestinians and 10 Israelis were killed in the continued process. Not too long before that, a funeral procession for a reporter who got killed by Israeli gunfire was attacked by Israeli forces, with people being beaten with batons and the coffin even being turned over.
Shireen Abu Akleh in Jerusalem. The Al Jazeera reporter was shot in the head while covering a raid by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank on Wednesday.
Israel's security forces had entered the hospital gates as Palestinians tried to walk the coffin out. The police fired stun grenades and pushed the crowd back. Whoa. And even the pallbearers had to retreat as police kicked and beat them with batons. And the coffin slipped to the ground. Shireen Abu Akleh was shot in the head covering an arrest raid by Israel's army. Reporters on the scene say the gunfire came from the soldiers, but Israel maintains Palestinian gunmen may have fired the fatal shot. It marked yet another death in a conflict where it is almost agonizingly routine.
Just creating a situation where thousands of people are going to have nothing to lose in joining up with a genocidal motivated regime like Hamas. Despite the goal and motives of the group, which would not only be the extermination of Jewish people, but include killing people like me for being queer, no bones about it, despite that, this puts Hamas in the position of being defenders, does it not? When your life is that of being impoverished due to the accident of your birth, and you have nothing to lose, how would it not be enticing to join a radical group despite not believing in everything they might stand for? The initial attack reminds me of this statement from Robert Bowman, a Vietnam vet who flew 101 combat missions and obtained the rank of lieutenant colonel before becoming a Catholic bishop and joining Veterans for Peace. Though that second part is unfortunate, the article he wrote in 1998 in response to U.S. embassies that were bombed in Kenya is very prophetic to events like the U.S. September 11th attack and the recent Hamas attack in Israel. We are not hated because we practice democracy, value freedom, or uphold human rights. We are hated because our government denies these things to people in third world countries whose resources are coveted by our multinational corporations. That hatred we have sown has come back to haunt us in the form of terrorism. Instead of sending our sons and daughters around the world to kill Arabs so we can have the oil underneath their sand, we should send them to rebuild their infrastructure, supply clean water, and feed starving children. In short, we should do good instead of evil. Who would try to stop us? Who would hate us? Who would try to bomb us? That is the truth the American people need to hear. I linked the full quote in the description. Israel has been an apartheid state for 70 years now. There are videos not even a year ago of Jewish settlers kicking out Palestinians from their homes and claiming it as their own.
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
it's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, يا عمي.
إلي 14 نفر 7 صغار و7 كبار. مش راح نطلع. إيش ما بده يصير. زي ما قلت لك إحنا مش راح نطلع. وإذا بدنا نطلع يعني نطلع على زي ما بقولوا يقتلونا بنطلع. غير هيك مش راح نطلع.
Yeah, like imagine you're living in your house. You have your entire life secured and established, and then some people come in with the backing of a local government, kicking you out, saying that this belongs to them now, based on some superstitious belief, and you have to leave. Would that not make you pissed? Would you just bow your head and go find some other land to live on after your entire livelihood was just ripped out from under you? I can't think of any historical period or event that happened in the United States that would be like that. I mean, certainly there's nothing you can relate to in early established United States where something like that occurred, where an entire people were just ripped out from their homeland and driven back and further back and genocided into almost oblivion. I can't imagine anything like that ever happening within any historical period. Okay, I'm done. That's just the tip of the things that go on here. And then you wonder why things like Hamas exist.
Influencer Henry Sisson tweets, "Amazing. President Biden is working on a plan with other countries that would allow civilians to safely leave Gaza and cross the border into Egypt. This is great news. President Biden is making sure that innocent people don't die due to the actions of Hamas. That's leadership." Yeah. Now, as Michael Wave correctly points out, this is ethnic cleansing. There is no ability for Palestinians who leave to return. This isn't a good compromise. This is a population transfer. Has everyone lost their minds?
Now I get if positions were reversed, the religious sentiment of Muslims in that area are the only good Jew is a dead one. So with that in mind, the best solution I see that won't happen because humans thirst for blood vengeance is that there should not be any military aid given to these countries. If anything, the Israeli demand to have the prime minister step down should be fulfilled. The borders of these countries should just be eliminated and let all these people figure their shit out as one state. I think it's a lot more rational and humane than deciding to declare 2 million Gazan citizens as combatants and pave them over into a parking lot. Just like the terror attacks in 9/11, just like ISIS coming to be, Israel creates the conditions for these groups to form.
We're in a religious war here. I am with Israel. Do whatever the hell you have to do to defend yourself. Level the place.
Why do liberal leaders suddenly sound like fascists in the United States when it comes to this issue? And the answer is simple. Follow the money. Organizations like IPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel spend millions and millions of dollars lobbying politicians every single year at the behest of Israel. In fact, groups like DMFI specifically spend to defeat progressive politicians that advocate for Palestinian human rights.
I have two quick historical examples. First is the Haitian Revolution. This was a French slave colony that rose up and claimed its independence. Later, what came was known as the Haitian Genocide in 1804. Where these soldiers, who were mostly former slaves, moved from house to house, tortured and killed entire families of the remaining European population, sparing Polish legionnaire allies and Germans who didn't take part of the slave trade. Did those families deserve it? No. But what do you do at that point? Reinvade the country and try to turn it back into a slave colony in response? You're crying because I hit you, so I'm going to hit you until you stop crying logic? Maybe don't try to enslave other people and you won't set up future generations to be massacred later. Maybe that could be a thing to consider. The other example is the Nazi occupation of Czechoslovakia. Germans who had nothing to do with the occupation had revenge taken against them in the form of vigilante groups and death marches. Germans had to wear white armbands after the war and so were easy to identify. That also included German Jews, which just hurts my brain. Like, 2 wrongs don't make a right is something we learn as children, right? This is like the neighbor kills your son, so in an act of revenge you kill his twice removed cousin. Holy shit. Let's just punish a bunch of people that had no real power in deciding the policies that led to the occupation. Anyways, after some ammunition dump exploded, that was used as an excuse to beat, bayonet, shoot, and or drown people in a fire pond, resulting in 27 deaths. Millions more were expelled from various territories, some sent to labor camps, while the ones in charge mostly remained unaffected. What's going to happen with regards to Israel after they are done with their war crimes? Who are going to be the primary people that suffer the potential wrath from survivors or even related people living in the surrounding territories? The same kinds of people that suffered this most recent Hamas attack. Families minding their own business, people attending festivals, paying the price for decisions made by people above them in power that decided certain people are less than human. It's a cycle of violence that will continue at this point. How many new future Hamas fighters have been created because of Israel's response? You think the starving families are going to blame Hamas for Israel cutting off their supplies and bombing their neighborhoods? In all likelihood, they're going to see the sentiment of Hamas as being correct over this. Like, see? Told you, they see all of you as the same. They're just mad because you didn't roll over and take it like good little girls and boys. I am well aware that being queer in Palestine is in itself illegal. More reason that neither side should be getting any military support. I'm all for humanitarian aid, but ultimately the abolishment of any state backing of religion in the form of policies and laws as a requirement of such aid would be a good start. These are just my thoughts, though. I'm no history buff, but someone who has definitely more knowledge on this subject would be Cavernacle. I've linked both of his videos in the description as well. Bye. Subscribe, like, comment me ideas and suggestions. Patreon for exclusive art and early videos. Merchandise at the online store. Check out the Weirdsaurus channel for weird furry shit. Pause Off for gaming skits and highlights from live streams that can be found on the Pause Off live channel. Also check out my friend Uncle Taco on Twitch for some other streaming fun business. Work in Progress is streamed at the CraftyAndy channel. Subscribe, like, and share. You heard what I said. Now see it done.